This is something that has anyone actually used a one-base language? For those that don't use NeoVim, has anyone used a one-based array language? Yeah? No? I have a couple yeses, which is odd because the people who said they used NeoVim did not raise their hands, so I'm a little confused right now. How did you guys do this? Yeah, so if you ever feel like you don't have skill issues, just go use a one-based array language for a little bit and just watch yourself shamble for just hours on end. It's exceptionally difficult. So TJ saying that we're wrong about zero-based, I don't know. Does anyone actually think one-based is superior? We have one person as far as I can. Two. We have two. No one else.
Why you're wrong about zero-based indexing. And I know that this might be controversial. I know this might be the last video that I ever make on YouTube.
We already know that's not true. He's gonna make more, and he's gonna tell you about it too.
By the end, I know you're gonna agree with me. So let's get right to the chase. Argument 0.
Look at this guy. You know right now he's laughing inside because he tries to do these all in one take, but he practiced this like 5 times not laughing to himself. Oh, I'm so clever. That's what TJ sounds like if you've never heard him.
Oh wait, that's actually my first argument. No one counts like this. You're just pretending. You're just locked into the programmer brain if you think the reasonable place to start counting for a sequence of things is 0.
Yeah? Why are you agreeing with him? I mean, it makes sense speaking, but we're not talking, because the thing is that if you look at the old days, this I only learned this fact just recently, but in C you can say array, index, number, right? Or you can go number, index, array, because it just takes those two things and adds them together, and that's where you're at in memory. I mean, it's a crazy feature, right? See, again, it's just crazy. But nonetheless, you can do that. It'd be kind of fun to do that and just see people's general reaction, because I was pretty confused myself. But that's because computers don't start that way, right? So does anyone not know how arrays effectively work? Wow, okay, we have one brave soul and a bunch of liars. I appreciate you. All it really is just contiguous memory, and that's it. And you index into it, and you hop by the width of whatever type you're using. So if you're using a 32-bit integer, if you add 1, it just hops by 32 bits and goes to the next place and reads it, goes to the next place. And so that's why it makes sense.
All the time, everywhere. I've never seen in any of my kids' books 0 is where we're starting to count when we're thinking about learning and associating numbers with actual values in real life. Beyond that, 0 isn't intuitive at all. It wasn't even around as a concept that we were using until like 300 BC in Babylon, and then India started.
Is that a little weird? Like, can you conceive of a world where you can't imagine 0 doesn't even exist? How does someone say, I have that many items? Like, I have 0 skill issues personally. How would I express that? I try to think about what would it be like how would you approach things if you actually lived in this type of condition where 0 doesn't, you don't even use the term 0. And I don't even have the ability to imagine what that would be like. And that's just kind of a weird conceptual ground to know that most people that lived as far as time goes didn't have this concept, and here we are arguing whether 1 or 0 is the more appropriate version to start at. It's just a strange
actually
experience.
Doing things with it. Then it spread throughout the Islamic world. They had a bunch of great ideas about it too. And then finally Fibonacci, sequences by the way, sort of popularizes the idea in Europe with Liber Abaci, which I probably slaughtered the name for, but I probably can't read the book anyway, so that's fine. The point is...
Any readers? Nah, I didn't think so. That was a good try.
...is 0 as a concept, as a number, is less intuitive than the rest of the natural numbers. Or if you don't want to count 0 as a natural number, that's fine too. I'm just saying it definitely feels and acts different than all the other numbers. And so now you're saying, TJ, but what about C? Are you really going to say you're so much smarter and so much better than all the people who made C? No, they're way smarter than I am. But fortunately for me, they never said anything about indexing. C only talks about array subscripting. And so you're saying, what? What do you mean array subscripting? So this sort of idea is the subscript of like if you write a little A for array and you put a little 0 on the bottom. That's the same thing. They're saying sort of like A sub 0 is the same thing as A with the curly braces, right? Left and right with a 0 inside. And how do I know this? Well, I read the specification.
Does anyone read the docs? Same guy who's not lying is now telling me he's reading the docs. Okay, sometimes. It is kind of a superpower if you do that. You know that, right? It's like one of the best things you can do for. I mean, I don't do it, but like I want you guys to do it, okay? Because it's that good. But still, TJ, I feel like TJ's lying right here. I feel like he's kind of skirting the issue a little bit, which is like, oh, but it doesn't say you can't do that. But then you're always wasting a little bit of space. And at one point in life, memory was a lot more like precious than it is now. Now you guys just run Electron, right? Who has Slack open pretty much right now on their computer? Yeah, you're just destroying your memory. I know it's free today, but at one point it wasn't free.
I mean, come on. You really think it's going to be a teach video without me breaking out the specification? 6.5.2.1 of the C specification, subsection 2 states that a postfixed expression followed by an expression in square brackets is a subscripted designation of an element of an array object for E1 left.
I just want to I feel like I want to punch TJ. Like is this what people feel?
Left bracket.
I'm going to invite him to my house and insult him.
That is the E-tooth element of E1 counting from 0. Okay, so there's no mention here of this concept of an index. It is specifically talking about this idea of subscripting on a C array. And what are C arrays? When we're operating on array subscript, we're saying that this is equivalent.
I didn't pre-watch this, okay? I did not pre-watch this. It just makes sense that this is the direction he's going to go.
To the location, right? So we're dereferencing the location of the array plus the subscript. Or in English, right, we want to get the location of array plus subscript. So subscript is basically like the offset from the original memory location, because in C, your pointer is actually the array.
Who did it? It's okay. No one's upset. Can I press play, or is it going to blow out someone's ears?
And the first value. So if you do the math here and you take an array and you say I want to get the address of the first element, it just seems so gross to say first when you're also going to say 0. Well, then we do the math, we cut everything out, and we end up getting.
That's actually fair. When you say first and you mean, I really hate trying to tell somebody what element to grab, because I know when I say first, it means not first, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's the fourth one, and then I have to count inwards because I know it's not. I feel like an idiot. It's like I could not explain that to my kids. It just would not work out, and so maybe TJ is partially right on this on the language translation problem here.
Getting array as array. So this is why in C it makes sense to use 0 as the subscript or the offset of the array, because what we're doing is actually pointer arithmetic with an array that has no additional information. Arrays don't contain information about their size or the elements. Or it's just literally a pointer to a.
Was that Rust mentioned? Did we just get Rust mentioned? Yeah? Maybe a little bit? No, it's Zig. It was Zig.
Spot in memory. You can do all sorts of really bad things with pointer casting and everything else, but the main point is that the array is actually just pointing to that thing in memory. And so when we add 0 to the array itself, we get back that array. But in the higher level languages, this isn't the case. We have some container object, and we're not doing pointer arithmetic or messing around with the memory locations themselves. We have a list object, right, or some sequence object. We can take, for example.
Is that true? I don't think it's true in JavaScript. I'm pretty sure in JavaScript it actually has a contiguous memory region underneath in which it does the offset, right? Yes? No? Yes? No? No one knows. I think he had too much OCaml, right? OCaml guy, right? No? OCaml guy right there. Yeah, he's had too much OCaml. It's not always lists, right? There's actual arrays.
This idea of then an index, not a subscript, right? So what we have here is we're not doing subscripting anymore. We want to point to, or we want to indicate what element we are trying to get inside of this sequence. And what's crazy here is we know that indexes are meant to point to things. That's what this is called, index finger, right here. I'm using my index finger to point to my index finger. And
It's his 0th finger, right?
how do we say 1? We point like this. Coincidence? I think not. We use our index finger to point to 1. So when you point at the first element, there is something you point at 1. And if it were possible to point at the none or zero element, that would be pointing at 0. That's what indexes do. They point at things. And we can see this. This is the language that's used inside other programming languages. For example, if you think about Python, this get item dunder method is what happens when you use those subscript operators. Although in this case, they're sort of a get item operator. And
I want to let him cook. You know, like I want to believe TJ because he might be one of the smartest people ever, but I just don't. I'm not buying it. It's hard to buy because in my head I still think like there still has to be like this subtraction that happens on every single indexing into every single array because you'd have to do something magic to know that 1 means 1 and 0 doesn't mean 1, right? Right? I said that right? Right. First. I didn't use the term first. And so it's like I want this to be true because it also means there's a second consequence, which is like in a for loop, you start at 0 and you go up to the length. But now you have to go from 1 up to and including the length. And you think my skill issues are bad now. That one small little change is going to get you everywhere because all of a sudden every single API you ever use has to go from exclusive into inclusive. Because that means every ending one, every time you do a substring and a substring, you have to go to the end and include that number as well because that's now how everything works, which just makes it much, much harder to reason about. I am hoping he addresses this one, but I struggle with this. I actually do struggle with this being good. Say that again? A language with both? Ugh.
It says for sequence types, the accepted key should be integer. So there's this concept of a key, right? And the key is what's pointing there, and what gets raised if there's an error is an index error. So what we can think about here is anything inside of these brackets, that's what we want to point to. So when we have some person dictionary or something like this, and we want to get the age out of that person, we pass the age value. And so then any reasonable person, I think, when they're saying get the first item, what are you going to put in the question mark spot? You're
0.
of course going to put 1.
No.
It's only our tricked programmer brains, the big industrial C complex, that is tricking you into thinking 0 should go here. It doesn't matter if you have a complaint about the speed or the math or anything else like that. At least,
I mean, he did just he just defeated my argument by saying you can't do that. But I do think it's true. And maybe it is the big C industrial complex that has influenced me. Is he giving me effectively, when I say you have React brain, is he giving me C brain right now? Is this like the equivalent of me being insulted? I don't know if I like this.
that is tricking you into thinking 0 should go here. It doesn't matter if you have a complaint about the speed or the math or anything else like that, at least in Python, because you're already writing Python. You just can't complain about it. Right?
That's actually fair.
And what's great in a wonderful sort of twist of fate for me as I was doing this research, I was reading the error once again from the standard manual, from index error in Python, and what it says that's so great is it says raised when a sequence subscript is out of range. And so within this problem in Python, which is 0 based, there's this contrast, this contradiction that you raise an index error, but what you're actually talking about is a subscript. That's the mismatch that I'm saying. An index is not the subscript, in this case, the way we're normally thinking and talking about these things. And beyond that, if we just appeal to our intuition.
Is this more nerdy, by the way, than tabs versus spaces? Index versus sequences? Is this like the new Twitter argument that's about to happen? I still just have a hard time conceiving of a world where this makes sense. I mean, I know it makes sense when you say it out loud, which is a weird thing to also say now that I just said that out loud. But it just still doesn't feel right.
Intuitions. Well, come on. We know what number points to the first position. And we know what index we want to check when we're looking to see if we're in the first iteration of a loop. But beyond that, these are the ones that I think you really have to admit. What number points to the third position? Are you really going to tell me that when I ask what number points to the third position, your first thought is 2?
Yes! Yes, it is! Why would it be? It's off. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
You're telling me you're not likely to accidentally do 3 instead of 2 when you're looking for the third thing in a tuple?
No.
Really? That's what we're going to say. And the other problem is that this zero-based sort of copied idea is not just for things that are strictly arrays, but we also end up using this thing for other data types too. When we're doing this, we lose the symmetry of having the last element equal the number of items. So how many
Fair. Can we agree to this one? I hate this one. I hate this one so much. So yes, okay. I mean, I'm feeling more convinced now. We should have started here.
times you try to get the last character or something like that in a string, and you've forgotten to do length minus 1. Right? And now we would be able to just say, I want to get the last character, my string of my string dot length. We could just get it. We could just forget about all the times that we've made other mistakes because we just cargo culted the idea of 0 into these strings as well. My last point here. If you're iterating over something, you're really going to tell me that this very lame indexing is better than just indexing from 1 to the length of the array?
That's an unfair comparison. Can we agree to that? Yeah, that's cheating. He's cheating right there. You know why? Because this is Lua lang. This is Brazilian lang. They're cheating right there because in a normal one you just put length. Cheater. I call foul on this one.
I know we're used to 0. I know you want to say, TJ, it doesn't matter. 0 is the right way because that's the way we do it. Stop trying to convince me otherwise. That's okay. I know that's why you're feeling, and that's why, in conclusion, all I have to say is, please stop arguing about this. This doesn't matter. You should just be using iterators.
He's absolutely correct on that one. You're fine with this? What happened if you need to use a boomer loop? Those are just for loops. Nope, no one? Okay. I mean, I use them all the time. Jeez.
Oh, and one more thing. Lua was right. Brazil mentioned. Neovin, by the way, thanks, everybody. And bye.
That was pretty good. All right, to be fair, I guess I've never, just like I can't conceive of a world where there isn't 0. Maybe I don't know what it's like only ever using 1, and maybe there's like a whole slew of off by 1 errors. Maybe the fact that we're always been off by 1 this entire time. I now actually might agree with this. I might actually agree with the fact that maybe, just maybe, 1 actually is the superior way. I mean, there has to be some people here. Who here in the last couple years would think that TypeScript was the single best language? It's okay. No one's going to hurt you. Okay, you're proud. But at some point, you do something else, right? You can say this almost anything. Like, hey, I'm going to just tell you a real story here. When I was in college, I thought that using NetBeans and Java was the only way a true developer developed. NetBeans. Older than some of you. Java totally is awful, right? Like, no one's. This was old Java, okay? You had the public static string main args, whatever it was, and you had to do all that, and everything was a class, 1 class per file. You could have classes nested. I mean, I was in design patterns, clean code. Oh, I had everything in version of control. It was absolutely fantastic. And then I used something different. I went to JavaScript at that point, which had no types in the language, at least, or in the, as you type it, and I loved it. I actually loved it using jQuery. I enjoyed jQuery more than Java, but I would not have known that unless if I made that leap. And so maybe there's something here. Maybe just maybe we're all wrong. Just thought. I keep being wrong in my life. One of I think the hallmark of a good programmer is not the amount of things you get right, but the amount of times you've done the wrong thing. Because it's extremely difficult for me to tell you why you should do something. You can see it, you can understand it on paper, but until you've shot yourself in the foot, I mean, I can't even believe I have feet to begin with at this point, but it's just like until I've done it for 20 years, it's like every single time now it makes so much more sense why I want to do something. But that didn't happen because I had to fail over and over and over. There's been times where I had to stay up all night trying to save something because I screwed up. There's that one time I accidentally broke production with Netflix when someone's show was released, and it would freeze the website if you happened to be on it. And no one was very happy, including the creator. But nonetheless, I had to learn those mistakes and then slowly learn why, like, say, testing is a good idea. Could have easily caught that, but I didn't because it wasn't embedded in my brain. I had to have someone yell at me for me to go, oh, yeah, I guess this makes sense. So it's like, is this just yet one more of those? Maybe. And maybe we should just use iterators. Yeah? No? Why did it start with 0? Oh, it's memory offset, right? Like that was the whole C thing right in the middle, is just that you had like extremely limited computational resources and extremely limited memory. And so you're counting bytes constantly. So if you start at 1, it's just taking the address of the thing you hand it plus whatever index and just adds them together, and that's where you're reading from memory. And so it's like if you were to waste a byte or 4 bytes or whatever it was, it would be like disastrous if you had a whole bunch of them. And so now it doesn't matter. Like now, ain't nobody gonna miss a few bytes. Like who here is concerned about memory? Okay, come on. Okay, Pekka, he's writing databases. I agree. You probably are more concerned about memory. Memory maxing? Yeah, probably. All right. Well, hey, this is pretty much all I wanted to go over. This is all I wanted to do. But I did want to leave a little something kind of special at the end here, which is that I've been to a lot of places, and it's pretty universal that there's a general feeling of angst and like kind of an intensity right now. I think that there's a lot of difficulty with finding jobs, switching jobs. There's a lot of difficulty just maintaining jobs. I know there's been a lot of layoffs. A lot of people have been hit by this stuff. But there is something that's also super cool, which is that none of us like got gatekeeped in some sort of way to enter into this. You just had to have a laptop and a willingness to learn. And I think that if you can just maintain that, you can overcome anything. And like I didn't get to start off good. Lots of difficulty to get like hold on. It was very difficult to get to the point of even being able to have the opportunity to do this. And I never once thought that I would have a future, right? I just knew that I was greatly upset at the current. And so I hope that you have that same, like that same drive that doesn't think about, like, that doesn't use the difficulties as a means to stop, but the difficulties as a mean to kind of keep on going and push through. Because at the end of the day, there's real value and real good things, but they're hard. They're very, very hard. And if there's one mistake I've made in my life, probably more than any other one, is taking that to the logical conclusion and disregarding people in my life or things like that. So don't overdo it. If you have a wife or a husband, value them too. Don't do this to the detriment of everything else, because you still have a life to live. And if you gain everything, but you lose the stuff that's important, what's the purpose? Right? You lose it. You lose it all. So don't make that mistake. My wife will tell you that like the first 4 years of our marriage were really hard. And it's because I had my head really far up index 0, and I didn't, I didn't know how to like balance these things. And luckily kids and all that really like helped kind of make me realize like I'm losing time. I'm not gaining time. There's no time left for me to gain anymore. I can only lose time from here on out. And so I just realized like just how to balance those two things. If I had a perfect answer, I'd give it to you, but I don't. I don't want you to leave like the things are defeated and hard, but I don't want you to work so hard that you lose everything in the transition. So please live a good life, value the things that are valuable, because it's more than just work, but man, it's good to enjoy what you do. Bye. All right. I think that's it.